Did medieval milkmaids actually invent the sport of baseball? It sounds like a ridiculous question, but the billion-dollar sports industry owes its existence to 15th century dairy workers. Most history books will tell you that baseball was invented by Abner Doubleday in Cooperstown, or that cricket was the refined invention of English gentlemen in exclusive clubs. But the truth is far dirtier, far more fascinating, and hidden deep within the crumbling parish records of medieval Sussex, where the true pioneers of the sport lived. These pioneers were not wealthy aristocrats or famous generals. They were women with rough hands who spent their days milking cattle in the muddy pastures of feudal England. This is the untold story of Stoolball, a game that scholars now recognize as the ancient grandmother of cricket, baseball, and rounders, played long before the first stadium was built. To understand how this happened, you have to understand the economy of the medieval peasant and the scarcity of resources that drove their recreational lives. In the year 1450, you could not simply walk into a store and buy a bat or a ball, so the milkmaids utilized the tools of their trade to create entertainment. The most important tool they possessed was the milking stool, a sturdy, three-legged wooden seat made of heavy oak or ash that was essential for their daily labor. When the overseer wasn't looking, these women would turn their stools on their sides or place them upright on the grass to create a target for a game. This simple act of placing a stool on the ground was the birth of the wicket, a concept that would dominate the future of global sports for the next 5 centuries. The ball they used was equally primitive, often a bundle of rags wrapped tight with twine or a leather casing stuffed with cow hair found in the barn. The rules were brutal and simple. A bowler would hurl the ball at the stool, and the milkmaid defending it had to stop the ball from hitting her livelihood. In the earliest versions of the game, the milkmaid did not even have a bat. She defended her stool using only the bare palm of her hand to slap the projectile away. You can imagine the stinging pain of slapping a leather ball for hours, which eventually led to a technological innovation that changed sports history forever. To save their hands from bruising, the women began grabbing the battledore, a wooden paddle used for washing clothes or removing loaves of bread from communal ovens. This battledore looked remarkably like a modern table tennis paddle or an oversized cricket bat, giving the players immense leverage and power they never had before. With a wooden paddle, they could hit the ball harder and further, which meant the game required more space and more fielders to retrieve the flying object. This expansion of the field created the geometric blueprint for the modern baseball diamond, as the ball naturally sprayed out in a fan shape from the batter. The game mechanics evolved rapidly, with players running between stools to score points, establishing the concept of runs that defines cricket and baseball today. But Stoolball was more than just a game. It was a critical social engine in a society that strictly segregated men and women during their working hours. The game became the highlight of Easter celebrations, marking the end of the gloomy Lenten fast with an explosion of joy, food, and spirited competition. Eastertide was the one time of year when the social barriers came down, and Stoolball became the primary venue for the village courtship market. Young men would gather at the edge of the pasture to watch the milkmaids play, admiring their athleticism and spirit as they hiked up their skirts to run. Inevitably, the men wanted to join in, transforming Stoolball into one of the very first mixed sports in European history, played by both sexes together. The stakes of the game were delicious, with teams playing for tansy cakes, a bittersweet treat made with herbs, sugar, and cream that symbolized the season. Losers of the match were often required to buy the ale, introducing a microeconomy of gambling and debt that accompanied every village match. As the game grew in popularity, it began to attract significant crowds, with spectators placing wagers on the outcome of the matches between rival villages. This combination of gambling, drinking, and the mixing of sexes naturally attracted the attention of the ultimate moral authority of the time, the church. The Puritans and local vicars viewed the game with deep suspicion, seeing it as a breeding ground for idleness, sin, and lascivious behavior among the youth. We have court records from the 16th century of individuals being fined or presented to ecclesiastical courts for the crime of playing stoolball on Sundays. In 1592, in the village of West Tarring, men were actually cited for playing the game in the churchyard itself, using the holy walls as a backstop. Imagine the scene of a priest trying to deliver a solemn sermon while the thud of a leather ball against a milking stool echoed from the churchyard outside. The church attempted to ban the game, associating it with the breakdown of moral order, but prohibition only served to drive the sport into the cultural underground. It was during this era of persecution that the game likely splintered into different variations, with some formalizing into cricket and others remaining as folk games. However, the most significant moment for American history occurred when a group of religious separatists boarded a ship called the Mayflower to escape this very scrutiny. When the pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock, they brought their religious convictions with them, but they also brought their cultural memories of English village life. On Christmas Day in 1621, Governor William Bradford recorded in his diary that he found men in the street, at play, openly, some pitching the bar, and some at Stoolball. This diary entry is a smoking gun, proving that Stoolball was one of the very first sports ever played on North American soil by European settlers. Bradford confiscated their equipment, declaring that devotion should be their focus, but the seed of baseball had already been planted in the New World. As the colonies expanded, the game of Stoolball evolved, with the stool eventually being replaced by flat stones or bags of sand, which we now call bases. The term home plate is a direct linguistic survivor of the original game, referring to the home stool that the milkmaid had to defend with her life. Back in England, the aristocracy began to co-opt the game, refining the rules and hardening the ball to create the sport of cricket, which excluded women. This masculinization of sport in the 18th and 19th centuries was a deliberate attempt to turn leisure into a test of manly endurance and military readiness. Victorian doctors even argued that the running and throwing involved in stoolball were injurious to women's health, pushing the milkmaids out of their own invention. While baseball exploded into a professional industry in America and cricket conquered the British Empire, stoolball retreated to the quiet villages of Sussex. It became a ghost sport, kept alive only through oral tradition and the stubbornness of local women who refused to stop playing their ancestral game. The Industrial Revolution further marginalized the sport as people moved to cities and lost access to the open pastures required to play the game effectively. However, a strange twist of fate occurred during the horrors of World War I that would bring stoolball back from the brink of total extinction. In 1916, a man named Major W. W. Grantham decided to revive the ancient game as a form of physical therapy for wounded soldiers returning from the trenches. These men, suffering from missing limbs, blinded eyes, and shattered nerves, could not play the high-velocity, dangerous game of hardball cricket. Stoolball, with its softer ball, underarm pitching, and emphasis on skill over brute force, was the perfect rehabilitation sport for the broken veterans. Major Grantham organized matches at military hospitals, where nurses played alongside the soldiers, reviving the mixed gender spirit of the medieval pasture. For a brief moment, the egalitarian nature of the 15th century game was reborn in the convalescent homes of the 20th century, bridging the gap between men and women. This revival sparked a renewed interest in the game, leading to the formation of leagues that continue to exist in pockets of southern England to this day. Modern stoolball still looks remarkably like the medieval version, with players using wooden paddles that resemble frying pans to hit a ball at a square target. When you watch the swing of a stoolball player, you are seeing the exact biomechanical motion that is used by Major League Baseball players today. The fan-shaped field that defines every baseball stadium in America is a direct legacy of the spray chart created by those medieval battledores. It is a humbling realization that the multi-million-dollar contracts of the New York Yankees are based on a game designed to pass time between milking cows. This story challenges the great man theory of history, which tries to attribute every innovation to a famous inventor or a wealthy industrialist. In reality, innovation often comes from the bottom up, born from the creativity of working-class people trying to find joy in a difficult world. The milkmaids of Sussex prove that you don't need expensive equipment or royal decrees to create something that lasts for half a millennium. They used what they had: stools, rags, and paddles, and in doing so, they inadvertently wrote the rulebook for the modern sporting world. The geometric perfection of the diamond, the tension between the pitcher and the batter, and the concept of innings all trace back to that muddy pasture. Even the terminology of outs and innings finds its roots in the Old English dialect spoken by these rural communities hundreds of years ago. So, the next time you watch a baseball game and see a player sliding into home, remember that home was once a three-legged wooden stool. And when you see a cricket bowler sprinting up to the crease, remember that the target was once defended by a woman protecting her milking equipment. History is often written by the victors, which is why Abner Doubleday gets the credit for baseball, and the milkmaids are largely forgotten. But the financial and historical records do not lie. They tell a story of female ingenuity that was co-opted, commercialized, and eventually erased. It is a reminder that the things we take for granted, like a Sunday afternoon game, have deep, complex roots in the economics of the past. We often look at history through the lens of wars and kings, missing the cultural revolutions that happen in the everyday lives of ordinary people. Stoolball is a testament to the enduring human need for play, for competition, and for the community that forms around a simple ball game. The Puritans tried to kill it, the Victorians tried to ban it, and the modern world tried to forget it, but the game has survived against all odds. Today, there's a small but dedicated community of players who keep this tradition alive, refusing to let the milkmaid's legacy fade into obscurity. They play on the same village greens where their ancestors played 500 years ago, using equipment that has barely changed in centuries. It serves as a living museum of sport, a physical link to a time when life was governed by the rising sun and the needs of the cattle. Understanding this history gives us a richer perspective on the games we love, revealing the hidden threads that connect us to the medieval world. It forces us to question what other contributions by women and working class people have been erased or renamed by historians over the centuries. The story of Stoolball is not just about sports. It is about ownership, cultural survival, and the way leisure reflects the economy of the times. If we look closely at the origins of our traditions, we almost always find a story of adaptation and resilience that is far more interesting than the myth. The Milkmaids may not have had patents or stadiums, but they had the vision to turn a chore into a game that conquered the world. So, as we wrap up this journey into the hidden past, I want you to think about the other ordinary things in your life that might have extraordinary origins. History is filled with these secret connections, waiting for someone to dust off the old records and piece the puzzle together for a new generation. If you are as obsessed with uncovering the hidden economics and secret histories of the world as I am, you cannot afford to miss what comes next. I'm currently investigating a forgotten financial panic that almost destroyed the Renaissance economy, and the story is even crazier than this one. You need to make sure you are subscribed and have your notifications turned on, because the history books are wrong more often than you think.